Okay, welcome everybody to another team call following another phenomenal week. Thanks to your phenomenal leadership. So many exciting things coming up, right? We have Celebration Live is coming up July 17th and 18th, I believe are the dates. Is that right? I think July 17th and 18th. So I would really encourage you to make plans. Strong recommendation if you're able to, if your countries are allowing it right now. I don't know, every country's different in terms of it's midnight. Oh, I thought it was no, I thought it started in the morning. We'll get all the details. Anyway, if it works for you guys, then great. There'll be the recordings, of course, as well. No, it starts that late? No, it's got to start in the morning here. 9 a.m. It's got to start. I think it's 5 UK. Anyway, we'll figure it all that out. So either way, so much happening. Big, exciting announcements coming at that event, but also big, exciting announcements coming in Europe. Some of you guys probably know what's happening. Some of you don't know what's happening. What I know is that this team and how this team is positioned in what's happening is very, very exciting. Very exciting. So, all right, let's get into this. I was watching a tennis match the other day. And I was watching a match, and it was Roger Federer. It was an old match, and it was Roger Federer. And I sat there and I was watching the tennis match, and I felt really bad about myself. I felt really bad. I was watching him, and I thought to myself, well, how come I'm not playing in the Wimbledon final? And how come my forehand's not that good? And how come I'm not as quick? And how come I'm not making millions of dollars as a professional tennis player? I don't understand. Now, to be clear, I used to be a competitive tennis player, but I haven't played tennis competitively in over 20 years. I started playing tennis again last year, but I only played like 5 times. So as your friend, knowing that I was watching Roger Federer beating myself up, what would you tell me? What would you tell me? I'm your friend. I'm letting you know that I'm sad. I'm disappointed in myself. I should be doing better. Right now, I should be playing in Wimbledon finals. What would you tell me? But I am comparing myself to him. I feel terrible. He's got nice, long, wavy hair. I don't have that. Right? He's taller than me. Can't change that. He's Swiss, right? Speaks multiple languages. I only speak 2. I don't know. What would you guys tell me? What would you tell me? How would you help me? Okay. And how many of you actually believe that I thank you for that, Arnaud. I like when Arnaud chimes in. Thank you for that one. But how many of you believe me that I sat on my couch the other day and was watching a tennis match with Roger Federer and had that conversation with myself? How many of you guys think that that actually happened? No. No way. Nope. And how many of you, when you heard me describing those things and as you were talking to me as your friend, we're sitting there going, that's crazy. Why would you even compare yourself to Roger Federer? That's nuts. He's put in hours and hours and hours on the court. He's put on years and years and years of practice. He's lost tons and tons of matches. He's hit more serves into the net, Zach, than you've ever even attempted. He's ran more sprints than you've ever thought about. He's faced more adversity in becoming a professional than anything you could even imagine. How many of you recognize that it was crazy for me? Crazy. As your friend who you were talking to because I was feeling bad about myself. Wasn't there a part of you sitting there going, but Zach, he's the best in the world. How could you compare yourself? And how many of you know that? How many of you know that You're not giving yourself the very same advice that you'd be giving your friends when they find themselves in comparison mode. How many of you have noticed that you're really great at cheering up other people, but you're not willing to speak life into yourself? But more importantly, how many of you are sitting on Facebook, watching recognition come out, and then saying, oh, look at them rank advancing. I'm not as good as them. Why aren't I as far along? And we do the same thing. But the thing that we're not doing is a couple things. One, you can't ever compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. How would it make any sense in the world if you've only been in isogenics for 3 weeks? Is it rational to compare yourself to someone that's been in for 3 years? If you've been in for 2 years, is it rational to compare yourself to someone who's been in network marketing for 20? If you've had 0 sales and marketing experience, is it rational to compare yourself to someone who's had maybe 5 to 10 to 15? Is it rational? Of course not. And if you heard your friend, like me, comparing themselves to somebody whose efforts they haven't replicated, whose time they haven't put in the same amount of time, you would say to your friend, don't be ridiculous. But you would also say to your friend what one of you said, which is, put in the work. Put in the work, and then start to look at it. Put in the work, and then see how far you can get. But the big thing I see when it comes to people that get into comparison mode is they want to compare results, but they don't want to compare time put in or consistency to it. And more often than not, what I found in my own life, and there have been times where I find myself in comparison mode, I really don't anymore, and I can talk to you about how it is, right? But what I learned how to do is I used to take a step back and I'd go, am I putting in the same amount of effort? Are my habits the same? I know that that person doesn't go out on the weekends. They're home working. Can I compare myself to them? Not reasonably, not rationally, not as an intelligent human being. And so the next time you find yourself in comparison mode, just take a step back and ask yourself a couple of questions. One, how long has the person that you're comparing yourself been in? Two, are you willing to compare your habits to theirs? Are you willing to compare your work ethic to theirs? If you were being 100% honest with yourself, have you made as many follow-up calls? Have you made as many prospecting calls? Have you gotten as many people onto webinars? Have you gotten as many people into EYB, for example, right? And it can be really sobering, but it's also really healthy because you can take a step back and I can look at it and go, I never hit as many balls as Roger Federer. Never. Is it fair? Like I look at, we have some guys on this team that are in incredible shape, you know, Arnaud, Dominique, Gilles, right? There's guys on here that I'm not naming, Phil, right? Like, can I look at their bodies and be like, oh man, no, I can't. Why? I haven't put in the same work, but I'm happy with my body. I'm not upset about it. But do I look at Arnaud and go, man, what's wrong with me? I'm not at 7% body fat walking around all day. Of course not. Because why would I ever do that if I haven't put in the same amount of time and energy and consistency into my habits that Arnaud has? It's not rational. It's not rational. But beyond it not being rational, this is something I want to bring to your attention, is, believe it or not, when we compare ourselves to people that have been more disciplined, that have been more consistent for longer periods of time, when we do that, do you know what we really are more than anything? More than anything, do you know what we're being? We're being arrogant. It's really arrogant. Think about it for a minute. It's really arrogant. If I were to go in the gym one day or for a week, and I wasn't at 6 or 7% body fat like Arnaud, and I was upset about that, man, why aren't I where you're at already? How arrogant of me. How arrogant of me to not honor the hours and hours and hours of discipline our nose had in the gym, the hours of meal prep, the hours of counting macros, the hours of learning about the body. How arrogant of me to think that I should be at the same quote unquote level as somebody who's done such extensive work. Let me ask you a question. If you were to go to medical school and want to be a doctor, would you think that on your first day of medical school, you should be as good at medicine as someone who's been in medicine for 30 years? Would you ever think that way? Type in the chat box. Would you ever think that way? In your first day of medical school, that you should be as intelligent, as sophisticated as, able to do surgeries? Would you ever think that way if you went to medical school? Never. You would never think that way. You would never compare yourself to the doctors that have been for years and years. Instead, what would you do? Instead, what would you do? Instead of comparing yourself to where they were, what would you do? If you were brand new and you wanted to be a doctor, what would you do instead of comparing yourself? What would you do? What would your mindset be? Be humble. What else? What would your mindset be? Coachable. What else? Study and work hard. Oh, there's birds chirping outside. Is it bothering you? Is that what it is? Oh, I'll close the window. That's what it is, Essie. Hang on a second. Okay, so you'd learn and you'd watch. You'd work hard and learn. You'd copy them, right? Study and work hard. You'd be more consistent. You'd show up at school every day. You would study every day. So why don't we take that approach here? And you'd model for sure. Modeling is one of the greatest ways of learning anything. So let me ask you a question. For those of you that have found yourselves in comparison mode, answer this question, and however you want to. What's the value in comparing yourself to somebody else? What benefit does comparison give you? I'll wait. What benefit? Zero. Zero. So the next time you find yourself in comparison mode, take a step back. Ask yourself the question. First of all, is it rational? Is it rational? The person I'm comparing myself to, is it rational? The second thing is, knowing that it brings no value to my life whatsoever, instead of allowing it to negatively affect me, and answer this question, type in the chat box, what could you focus on instead? So instead of focusing on where you're not at or where you think you should be in comparison to them, instead of focusing on those things, what else could you choose to focus on? Michelle said you can use it to inspire you. What else could you focus on? Okay, so you're in a negative, what you've already achieved, fantastic. What else? What's here already, what they can teach you, right? Being able to learn from others. You can take action, right? What are you doing well, right? Gratitude. You can have an attitude of understanding that if they can do it, I can do it. You can be appreciative. And the thing that we don't do, and this is what delays our growth, is we don't stop and go, oh my God, look at how far I've come from where I was. Exactly, Kay. Look at how far I've come from where I was even yesterday. Look at how I responded to that situation. In the past, I would have been very reactive. In the past, that would have given me a ton of anxiety. In the past, I would have, maybe avoided a situation. But look at what I did. I had courage. 6 months ago, I would have never had the courage to even ask somebody to do something like this with me. 6 months ago, I would have never even had the courage to try to have a transformation physically. Look how far I've come. And honor yourself for that, because momentum and success love speed. But the only way you can create speed is by constantly acknowledging yourself and being aware of what's working in your life. And instead of like what Lucia just said, instead of comparison, try celebration. Like, try really to celebrate other people's success. And what I mean, here's what I mean. When I see my friends in this company rank advancing, making more money than us in certain months or whatever, when I see that happen, do you think I sit there and go, oh man, I wish our team would grow a little bit faster? Of course not. Because what's happening in their lives and what they're doing is not about you, it's about them. And are you willing to circulate the flow of abundance by really celebrating their success and saying, yes, that's amazing, congratulations, you deserve it. And are you willing to visualize how good they're feeling in their celebration? And imagine for a second, next time you find yourself in a comparison, when you see somebody else excelling, here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine that you're at a party, okay? And everybody at the party's having a great time. Everyone's celebrating, dancing, music, food's great. You know what you are? You know what you're doing? Just imagine for a second. Remember the cartoons where they're like the one cloud that would follow around the character and it would just rain on the one, remember? That's you at the party, right? So you're the one person at the entire party because you're not willing to authentically celebrate. Dark cloud, rain cloud. Everywhere else it's sunny, dark cloud, rain cloud. Would you want to be that person at the party? Of course not. You wouldn't want to be the person at the party. So how do we remove it? By certainly and with certainty, without anything other than celebration for them. Because here's the reality. When you're not willing to celebrate other people's success, you deny yourself abundance. And you come from a place of scarcity and lack. Because what you're saying is, oh, if they're achieving all this success, then that must mean that there's not enough left for me. And that is Crazy Town, USA, as we call it. How many of you would agree with that? Type in the chat box. It's crazy to think that the root of comparison is scarcity. The root of comparison is I'm unwilling to celebrate what they're doing because I now carry the belief that because they're doing that, it means that I can't do that. There's not enough. There's limitation. And that's absurd. And it's irrational. And that's why learning how to increase our emotional intelligence is the most important work you will ever do in your life. Recognizing how to take a step back and look at a situation while feeling what you feel. It's okay to feel your emotions, but are you willing to observe your emotions and just take them through a very simple process of some rational thought, just so you can give some conscious idea to it? Are you willing to do that? Because if you're willing to kind of raise your emotional intelligence, and you're willing to observe how you respond or react in any given situation, and you can learn how to improve in similar situations over time, you'll build positive momentum, and you'll create more abundance, and you'll create more flow. And here's the other thing you'll create. You'll create a bigger team. You'll create more community. You'll create greater abundance. But make no mistake, and as soon as you go into comparison mode, you know what you do? You shut off people coming into your business. You create an energetic, virtual wall that says, don't come here. Don't come here. And so rather than putting yourself in a position to attract people, you're creating an energy force because you're living in a state of scarcity that repels people. Simply because what you're saying is, hey, if you were to come be in my space, I would never really want you to win. Whoa. Think about that. When I'm in comparison, I create an energy that communicates to the world, if you were to partner with me, I wouldn't actually want you to win. Anybody looking at comparison in a slightly different way now? Think about that. So much scarcity in comparison. When evidence suggests that there's more than enough. Money, success, it's an idea, it's a concept, it's an energy, And how you choose to think, feel, breathe, act, speak in any given situation, it's either going to attract abundance or deepen scarcity. So the next time you find yourself in comparison, just stop. Am I operating from fear or love right now? Am I operating from a place of scarcity or for abundance? And then stop and ask yourself a question, right? And I mean this with all the, and I mean this without, I don't mean this to be a joke in any way. You hear people ask, what would Jesus do? But maybe you're not religious in that way, and that's okay. But who do you look to? Who has the results that you want? Who are you comparing yourself to? And stop and ask them, what would they do? Oftentimes, Eden and I find ourselves in a situation exactly. Michelle just wrote it. Thanks for stealing my training. My gosh, you watch us do the whole thing. I'm just kidding. But that's what I'll do. Eden and I will find ourselves where we have a decision we've got to make, and we just take a step back and we think, okay, who are the people in our lives that have the results that we want? They've created the environment that we want, the community that we want, the way of being that we aspire to. And we look at times to Jim and Kathy Coover and we stop and we ask, what would Jim and Kathy do? And when we do that, we surrender our ego because we're modeling people that have demonstrated what it looks like to make decisions from a place of love and not a place of ego. I don't look at Jim and Kathy and go, oh my God, I'm so far away from where they are in my life. I look at Jim and Kathy and go, if I think like they think, if I speak like they speak, if I treat people like they treat people, if I take action like they take action, if I hold myself to a set of values like they do, over time, that's an inevitability. That's the difference between an abundant thinker when it comes to comparison and a scarcity thinker. Of course, I'm looking at Jim and Kathy's results. I'm looking at Susan Sly's results. I'm looking at Lynn Hagedorn and Michael Klaus's results and Herb and Patty Cepeda's results. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, heck yes. Thank you for showing me the path. Thank you for demonstrating that if I just do the same thing you've done, and it might not be as fast, it might be slower, it might be faster, but I'm focused on the end result of a life of abundance, the end result of a life of joy and harmony and community and collaboration and contribution. I'm focused on the end result. And so when I find myself getting stuck in any area, but right now we're talking about comparison, I just stop and I ask myself the question, is this going to take me one step closer to a life of abundance and prosperity and community and collaboration and joy and harmony and peace? Or is it going to take me one step further away? But here's the funny thing about it. The negative thought doesn't take you one step further away. The negative thought takes you 1,000 steps further away. And why is that? Because you're already programmed to think negatively. You don't need any help thinking you're not worthy. You don't need any help thinking you're not unlovable. It's an unconscious underlying root, which is horrible, which we try and reprogram. But make no mistake that your brain has been conditioned with tens of thousands of negative thoughts. So every time you give into that negative thought, it's exponentially negative because it further cements your identity as being someone who doesn't feel like they deserve greater. Going back to the stages of transformation that I trained on last week, right? We want to create that new identity. It's in those moments of deception. It's in those moments where we're in comparison. It's in those moments when we're in sabotage, where we've got to stop and breathe and look at the whole picture. Is how I'm choosing to feel right now is going to move me one step closer to the life I want to create, or is it going to keep me further stuck into the life I've already created? So I just want to leave you with that. I'm going to post in both the groups. What did you learn? I hope you have a phenomenal evening. Again, a happy, happy Father's Day. Thank you all for everything that you do and for everything that you contribute to the world, to our lives, to your communities. And last but not least, when it comes to comparison, for the love of God, get out of your head, get into your heart. Lots of love. See you guys. Have a good evening.